And so it's clear that it hasn't created the amount of units that was expected when the ordinances were adopted. I also thought it was important just to highlight what's behind the recommended action in your staff report. That action really came from a few points. One is that the inclusionary ordinance is, in my opinion, a constraint on housing production, and that's obviously something we'd have to continue to prove, but it seems clear to me that in talking to developers that this is one of, it's not the only constraint, but it is a constraint to the production of market rate housing in the city as a whole. That constrained housing production increases overall housing costs, really sort of basic supply and demand. As coastal cities in particular have ways of constraining housing, that just has a natural tendency to increase housing costs across the city. I also believe it's a burden on the market rate developers and ultimately the market rate buyers and renters to add this burden and this cost to development. As a market rate developer has to provide a certain percentage of affordable, that shifts the cost to the rest of the project, has the potential of increasing housing costs for the rest of the population. And I think something that's becoming more and more clear, and the Council somewhat acknowledged this when you looked at the home funding RFP, the most expensive way of delivering housing is to build it new, particularly building it new as part of a market rate project.
Okay. Good evening. I'm John Jones, a Ventura resident and a member of House Farm Workers.
I'm Claudia Arman, Ventura resident. We have been meeting with a number of groups concerned with the need for housing that is affordable so we can better understand the city's current policies. We've researched how these policies work in other communities and discussed how Ventura's policy could be improved. We are presenting today on behalf of CAUSE, House Farm Workers, Cabrillo Economic Development, Lift Up Your Voice of the UU Church, Ventura County Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. I will leave handouts of our presentation so you have them in front of you for your convenience.
Sampling of some jobs from hospitality and retail jobs listed last week on Craigslist in Ventura. Motel clerks to cashiers and bartenders that pay as minimum $8 an hour. The city has decided that tourism and economic and retail should be a major focus of the city's economic development strategies. New hotels are planned. We know that many of these retail hospitality jobs will be in the downtown, so participation by downtown developers in providing some affordable units is appropriate. It would be unacceptable to exempt downtown, particularly since we have key projects in the pipeline there. Next slide, please. And these are some places where workers that are needed for us to create a viable and retail sector in our city might end up living. Cramped, substandard, families doubled or tripled up, or out of town and burdened with the cost of commuting.
I'm Karen Haverin. I am the president of the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors, and I do thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about inclusionary zoning ordinance this evening. I will go ahead and read just a prepared statement for you. The Realtor Association would support the recommendations to the Realtor Association would support the recommendation to eliminate the inclusionary zoning ordinances in Ventura. While we agree that affordable housing is vitally important to the community, inclusionary zoning ordinances are a controversial tool that has had a negative impact on production of housing overall and creates creates more problem than it was designed to control.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council members. I am Annie Marroquin, a West Ventura community resident, and I'm here to urge you all to support affordable housing in the thriving city of Ventura. I was born and raised in Santa Barbara until my family and I were displaced due to increasing rents. My parents worked long hours and almost 7 days a week, and it seemed unfair that they could not live in the city that they worked in. We moved to Ventura, a city I've grown to love because of its diversity of ethnicities and incomes. A place where my family and I truly feel at home. This is how many families, neighbors, and friends feel, and by removing this ordinance, Ventura will soon become unaffordable due to high-end development, and people will have to move or commute, causing even more problems. By providing housing where jobs are, there are many opportunities to improve the community. As much as we all care about Ventura and its prosperity, we should also care about the people living in it, who help keep it sustainable. Also, consider the option of reasonable in lieu fees for developers to still give people a chance to live here. I hope you all support this ordinance to help keep local workers, families like my own, and even college students like myself in the city we all continue to help build. Also, we have collected 360 petition signatures of people who support City Council passing policies that promote affordable housing in all communities across Ventura. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Tracy and council members, glad to be here tonight to address you on this very important item. I think, first of all, I urge you to reject the recommendation to have a moratorium on the downtown inclusionary. For one thing, your obligations under redevelopment law do continue. Even though there's been some changes in successor agencies and all this, the fact is the community redevelopment law is still on the books.
In short, DHCD does not hold the policy position that the admin report says it does. It should not be the position of this council to advance a developer-driven agenda that serves business special interests, as this appears to be. It does make me wonder about the agenda of those who would prepare a report making such a false claim in order to provide cover for the city to eliminate affordable housing, just so a few developers can get a bit more of a sweetheart deal on construction.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Good evening, City Council members, and Mayor Tracy. I'm here tonight to tell you why you shouldn't eliminate inclusionary housing ordinance. I'm a Ventura resident. I live in an apartment with my parents. My dad works in Santa Barbara painting houses, and my mom recently stopped working as a housekeeper in Santa Barbara because she's pregnant. Now that she's not working, it's even harder for my family. We live in a one-bedroom apartment and paying nearly $1,000. And that's not counting food and utilities. Since my mom's pregnant, she won't be able to work for a while, so we live in one income. As it is, we're a typical family in Ventura that is barely getting by. The housing market is picking up, which means rents will go up. Families like my own are at risk of being displaced if affordable housing is not available. The median house price in Ventura is $400,000, a price my family cannot afford. Please consider families like my own who will be deeply affected if you get rid of the inclusionary housing ordinance. I urge you to consider policies that will make affordable housing available for people like me. Thank you.
Mayor Tracy, members of the council, my name is Matt Guthrie. I am the Public Policy and Government Affairs Director for the Ventura Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Chamber. I want to thank Jeff as well for a great presentation. I've seen the city report and recommendation, and the Chamber does support the original recommendation of city staff to eliminate both the downtown and the city-wide inclusionary housing ordinance.
That's why I'm here, representing all my residents or this city of Ventura, for you to touch your heart and do not eliminate inclusionary housing. Like you know, we all pay the taxes, same taxes, but not the same salary. We receive very cheap hour for our work.
These families cannot pay expensive rent. Mr. Mayor and council members, we know that it's in your hands tonight to help the low-income families that they deserve affordable housing. Thank you very much for hearing my petition. Also remember, in November is elections. There's approaching. Thank you very much for helping our community.
Thank you, Thomas. Carol.
We did sort of an inventory of all the housing down there. And one of the reasons we know that is because when we're trying to attract retailers, the demographics of a city goes beyond the social good. It has ripples out into the economics of a city. And retailers do studies on income levels at various areas outside of their service area. We could not get Trader Joe's to come downtown because of the type of housing downtown. They will only come for a certain demographic, certain income levels, and that's one of the things that caused us to look at this. So to have a successfully, economically sustainable, viable, prosperous downtown that has a good mix of businesses and housing, we need to rethink what's going on down there for housing.
Direct staff to establish a Blue Ribbon Committee to engage in broad community dialogue to review inclusionary ordinances for purposes of preparing recommendations for improvement of our inclusionary housing policies, including an analysis of an in lieu fee option and potential variability of design and fabrication of location, and report back to council upon completion, and then amend density bonus ordinance to count inclusionary units for density bonus benefits.
Okay. So I misunderstood your motion. I can support that.
Vote?
Yep. Oh, excuse me. Councilmember Monahan, I was like,
No, I don't need to, Mayor.
okay. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Brennan?
Yes.
Councilmember Weir?
Yes.
Councilmember Morehouse?
Yes.
Councilmember Andrews?
Yes.
Councilmember Monahan?
Yes. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Heitman?
Yes.
Mayor Tracy?
Yes, that motion passes. Councilmember Weir.
I'd like to move that we implement a 5-year hold on the downtown ordinance, subject to maintaining a minimum of 20% affordable housing mix.
I'll second that. Deputy Mayor Heitman.
So, getting back to my other point, would you consider putting that into the mix so that it could be considered by the Blue Ribbon Committee?
Of course.
Before bringing that as an official motion?
Not if it's going to take like 6 months to a year. I mean, we've been in process with that for, when did we bring this up? A year and a half ago? Yeah. So we've already been through this particular process with the downtown part of it for pretty long. So putting it on to a whole nother discussion, I mean, we've had a separate discussion about that with the downtown stakeholders and all that. So prolonging it and putting it as part of that, unless it's coming back pretty soon, I don't see that as working.
Okay, that's kind of why I was asking the question about the timings.
Yeah, I know.
Councilmember Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm thinking in the discussion of everywhere else in the city, they're going to come up with some policies that obviously could be applied to the downtown, and looked at that to jumpstart that in some way, shape, or form. I mean, the in lieu fees is a big opportunity. And the mayor alluded to my support of looking at this a while ago, but that's when there was the in lieu fee opportunity for the rapid rehousing. So I'm thinking, as this to the prior motion, as they're discussing, they're going to come up with things that are probably applicable to the downtown, and so I'm comfortable with that. Well, so it's unsaid. It certainly can come forward that there might be some suggestions that this could be used throughout the community, and not specifically in the downtown. So I'm comfortable with the prior motion because I think it's going to get us where we're going to need to go with what some of the development people and the advocates are going toward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Weir.
The prior motion does not include a stakeholder discussion of the downtown.
Not specific geographically, but it does inclusionary in the city. So they're going to come up with, I think, programs and policies that are applicable pretty much anywhere, and we could look and see if they were appropriate to fit into the downtown to make those things work, to get those projects up and running, which I think is really the gist of what we're trying to accomplish down there, is to bring the market rate in and trying to figure out if the developers, if there's something holding them back, and some people think it's inclusionary, some people it's the uncertainty, some people it's the land cost, all those things together. But I think the discussion that this group started last Thursday is going to provide some answers to how we jumpstart the downtown, truthfully. And I'm not sure us up here know exactly what that is. And I'm not sure, while I know Councilman Ware, you've been passionate about the downtown, I think we all are. I think those programs, those policies that come forward, we can look at and see if they're applicable. I certainly am looking to see if those are going to come back to us in a report. would say, okay, well, why doesn't that area be a part of the downtowns, those policies in the downtown? Because I think we all agree we want housing downtown. So those policies put toward that will get us where we want to go, which is why we're holding back on the 5 years, because we're thinking that's keeping them from getting there. So these policies come forward out of this group, which I believe they will. I can see it being used everywhere. And so that's why I think I'm comfortable that the prior motion inadvertently addresses that.
Okay. I disagree with that. Because if you have an area that has a different need, if we need to work with the rest of the town to bring it up to 20%, and we have an area of town that's in a completely different situation, I'm not sure that the policies would work the same when your goals are different. So I'm just going to keep my motion as it is, see where it goes, and then we can deal with, if it fails, then we may need to make another one to include that as part of the stakeholder, because it wasn't part of Councilmember Andrews' motion. Thanks.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Brennan?
No, reluctantly, no. Thank you.
I'm sorry? Councilmember Weir?
Yes.
Councilmember Morehouse?
No.
Councilmember Andrews?
No.
Councilmember Monahan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Heitman?
Ooh, I'm so torn on this. No, right now. I might have a different.
Mayor Tracy?
Yes. That motion fails.
Representing the Ventura Chamber of Commerce, I feel a little bit less outnumbered on this item than the last item.